At this time, I will call to order the Tewksbury Finance Committee meeting for March 8th, 2021. On the agenda tonight is the capital budget. Are we sharing the document?
You see that document?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just going to go through some slides that I had last week, Mr. Chairman, from the Enterprise Fund and capital budget presentation, and then answer any questions the committee might have. It's pretty straightforward, but just want to give you an idea of what we have in the capital budget and what we're bringing forward in FY22. Brian Gilbert and Kevin Hardeman are here to answer any of the DPW questions, seeing that DPW is the bulk of the presentation, or bulk of the capital budget. So if I go to the first slide, this is the first department's capital budget. This is the Telemedia Enterprise Fund. From FY22 to FY26, they'll be looking for $589,200 worth of capital improvements. They're listed here on the slide. In FY22, we'll be bringing forward within their budget $174,200 for a closed captioning system to meet ADA regulations and FCC regulations. We're going to fund this through the cable revenue that we receive from Comcast and Verizon. As you can see on this slide, we have a hefty amount in our retained earnings for telemedia at a little over $1.9 million. We receive approximately $296,000 a year from Comcast and Verizon, another $339,000. That's all dependent upon their gross revenue. We receive 3.5% from Comcast, and right now we receive 5% from Verizon, but next year we'll receive 3.5%. So there's enough revenue within the cable television enterprise fund to not only pay for their budget operations, but also this capital improvement request that they have. And then we feel comfortable that in the future we'll be able to handle any other capital that they have coming forward that's outlined in this 5-year plan. The next set of capital projects, Underwater Enterprise Fund. This slide gives you an indication of the 5-year plan for water. Water has the largest amount of capital of all the enterprise funds, $13.6 million over the next 5 years, from FY22 to FY26. The bulk of that is a water distribution design and improvement. That's replacing all of the 2, 4, 6-inch lines that we have in town, and mainly replacing the AC asbestos pipe that we have in the community that is constantly causing us problems with water breaks. The plan is to borrow $2 million a year over the next 5 years, and frankly, over the next 10 years to address water distribution improvements throughout the community. This by far is our most aggressive capital improvement plan within the capital budget. In addition to that, over the next 5 years, they'll seek $1.1 million in water treatment plant and tank maintenance upgrades. Most of that cost is going to go towards tank upgrades. $625,000 in hydrant replacements at $125,000 a year, and $350,500 in vehicle replacement. The next slide just gives you an idea of what we're looking at in fiscal 22. Just in that particular year, we'll be looking for $3.1 million in water distribution improvements. That'll be a combination of borrowing and retained earnings to fund that portion of the project. $1.5 million will come from retained earnings and 1.6 from borrowing. And in addition to that, we'll be seeking $125,000 for hydrant replacements, $160,000 for tank maintenance and design upgrades in FY22. But we're going to defer $100,000 until the fall and seek only $60,000 in FY22. And we'll be seeking $172,500 for vehicle replacement. $100,000 will be for a loader that will be shared with the highway department and a backhoe that will be shared with the water and with the sewer department. Moving down to sewer. Sewer enterprise has a capital over the next 5 years. We'll be seeking a little over $3 million for capital improvements, 1.4 million for inflow and infiltration, I&I control, 1.3 for sewer pump station improvements, and 250,500 in fleet equipment replacement. In FY22, we'll be seeking $447,500 in capital improvements, 50,000 for I&I controls, and 325,000 for sewer pump station improvements. Both of those projects will be paid for from a Pulte gift account. This gift account was formed several years back when Pulte Homes was building a new development in Andover. They tied into the town's sewer system, and when they did, we negotiated a mitigation package with them that provided the town over $1.6 million. Over $1 million of that went into this gift account that we have been using over the last couple of years to address I&I and sewer pump station improvements. Finally, $72,500 will be used to purchase a loader with the water department. Stormwater, which is our newest enterprise fund, over the next 5 years has a little over $2.7 million in capital improvements, 2.3 million in drains, and $390,000 in project development and design. In FY22, we'll be seeking $515,000 within the enterprise fund. $480,000 will be used for drainage improvements at Pinnacle Street, Culford, Old Boston Road connection to Main Street, and Cayuga Street. All of that will be paid for through the stormwater fee that we bill and receive. And then $35,000 will go into project development and design of drainage system improvements for Woburn Street and Felker Street neighborhood. And again, that's all being paid for by the stormwater design, stormwater fee. Just as of note, at the last meeting, Rich, I think, asked about the stormwater fee. We have collected so far $745,000, approximately $745,000 in revenue from our stormwater fee. We sent out 10,200 bills over each billing cycle, one in December and one in August. We are pretty much on track to collect what we projected to collect, which was about $1,190,000 in revenue. So it looks like, based on one more billing cycle to go, we'll probably be right around that amount that we projected. Is there a question?
Do you have it split between commercial and residential?
That's everybody included. I can get that split for you, Tom.
A little muted there, Tom, like muffled, rather. Yeah, sounds still not good.
Okay, thank you.
And then moving on to the 5-year plan itself, I sent the committee in the presentation these slides. This is from the summary of the 5-year plan. I also sent the package of the detailed 5-year plan that we have with all of the narratives that back up each of these projects. It's broken down between facilities and grounds, fire department, DPW, general fund, DPW water, DPW sewer, DPW stormwater, and telemedia. This first page just gives you an idea of the general fund requests for each of the 5 years and what we'll be bringing forward. Under this first one, facilities and grounds, we'll be bringing forward the police station capital requests of $257,668 for improvements to the police station. That includes $142,000 for the training room improvements that were brought forward as a priority last fiscal year, an upgrade to the gym and fitness area for the police department, which is approximately $35,000, and a new video system upgrade for the station, which is approximately $78,000. The remaining items, the library, town hall annex, in town hall, the senior center, and the renovations to facilities improvements will be put off until the fall. Those funds, the facilities director, Vinnie Volmel, asked that those be brought forward in October because the projects wouldn't start before that. At the library, it's for carpeting, town hall annex flooring for $25,000, atrium lights, and restroom improvements at the senior center. And then at the recreation fields and facilities, $94,000 for upgrades of equipment and resurfacing of the skateboard park. Under the fire department, we'll be bringing forward in FY22 in May funding for a new F550 ambulance. That's an upgrade from the current ambulance that we utilize in F450. Because the new station that's being built, we're able to house an F550 ambulance, which is larger, much more sturdy in its construction, and will have a longer life than we currently have in our ambulance by at least 1 year, so that's good news. We'll also be looking for $190,000 to replace a 2000 rescue vehicle with a smaller, more versatile vehicle than we currently have. Under Public Works, the first section, which is transportation, most of that is going to be paid for through Chapter 90 funds. The only project that we will bring forward within the transportation under DPW will be sidewalks. We'll be seeking $250,000 of the $870 that we have planned in the budget. The $250,000 will come from the stabilization fund. The remaining funds will come from a complete streets grant that we'll be applying for. Under facilities, $15 million has been plugged into FY22 and FY23 for phase 1 and phase 2 of the DPW facility. The hope is to bring those forward in phase 1 forward in the fall. Once we get past the July 1 and understand what our state aid is, how our revenues look, and if we have the ability to move forward. And then fleet, $440,000 to fund vehicles within the DPW. I just talked about the enterprise funds previously, so there's no need to go over that. But this sheet just gives you a summary of the 5 years that we talked about for each of the enterprise funds. This next slide just gives you an indication of what we're going to raise and appropriate from the stabilization fund, or raise and appropriate through general fund revenues for these particular capital projects. This next slide gives you an indication of what we use in Chapter 90 funds for, or any private grants for. This slide gives you an indication of what we're using retained earnings or stabilization, enterprise stabilization fund for. This is mostly being funded by retained earnings. I mentioned earlier that we're using 1.5 in retained earnings for water projects. We're actually using 1.6 and we'll borrow 1.5. This outlines what our borrowing costs will be for our general fund. This is the $875,172 I set aside for each phase of for the first phase of the DPW/school maintenance facility. Just for a budgetary figure, I plugged in another $875,172 in FY23. Now, I'm not sure if we'll have that capability, but it's plugged in there with the hope of moving forward with it. This gives you an idea of what the borrowings will be for water distribution, water tank improvements, and the Water Enterprise Fund's share of the DPW school maintenance facility costs, since they'll utilize that building. And then this last slide gives you an idea of the annual expenditures that we'll have on capital projects for each of the funds, as well as the total by each year that's being requested. The total is obviously higher because there'll be some major borrowing, and then the annual is less because we'll be just paying off debt service. This next slide is what we'll be presenting at town meeting in a warrant article for general fund expenditures. We'll be seeking to transfer funds from the stabilization fund or the DPW equipment that I mentioned in sidewalks. We'll be looking to purchase a loader, splitting that cost 50% with the water enterprise fund. A 6 to 8 yard sander slide in that we want to purchase, a 6-wheel dump with plow, and to replace a F-550 vehicle with plow package. The fire, as I mentioned, the ambulance and the rescue truck, and then facilities and grounds, the police department upgrades I mentioned. Again, this will all come from the stabilization fund. And it's important to note that many of these items would have been brought forward in FY21, but because of COVID, we pushed everything off. So this truly is looking at 2 years worth of items since we delayed some in FY21. Then finally, these are the enterprise fund articles that we'll bring forward using retained earnings and water to pay for the loader that I mentioned that they'll split with the highway department, the backhoe they'll split with the sewer enterprise fund, hydrant replacements, water distribution upgrades, cleaning and inspecting all 4 water tanks for $60,000. Sewer enterprise fund retained earnings will only use $72,500 for the backhoe, and then the stormwater fee will be used for those capital projects that I mentioned. And then I didn't have a slide for this. I had in last week's presentation. Going into the fall, there will be other facilities and grounds items that I mentioned earlier that we'll seek to fund in October. We'll seek funding for $100,000 for the design of upgrades to the Astor Street tank. And obviously, we hope to bring forward the DPW school maintenance facility, and that debt service is already set aside in the operating budget. So that's the capital budget, similar to what I presented last week. Brian, Kevin, did I miss anything?
No, Richard.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that summary. Guess we can go around and ask some questions. Rich, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I through you to the town manager, just to make sure I have it right, the fire rescue vehicle we want to replace will be smaller than the one we have now?
Yeah. The plan will be to purchase a smaller, more versatile vehicle.
Okay, and then me not knowing what that vehicle is used for, is that the one that just, what does that vehicle do, I guess, is the question.
It's not, it doesn't have any capabilities of, it's not like a fire engine where it has maybe a pumper truck where it can pump water towards a fire. It truly carries equipment on there for any type of rescue situation. I'm sure Jason can probably speak to it better than me, but so I can see him smiling and chomping at the bits. Okay, Jason.
No. Rich, the rescue vehicle is for confined space rescue, for vehicle accidents, for vehicle stabilization on rollovers. It has jaws for extrication. It carries extra O2 bottles to support fire operations on the fire ground. It's also used as a rapid intervention team for downed firefighters in a fire. So it is a very versatile vehicle. It's a vehicle that supports first alarm operations on the fire ground, and that's why I'm a big supporter of it. That's the brief skinny on it.
Okay, thank you. The only other question I had, I guess it's to the Brian and or Kevin. When we talk about our water distribution system, our water pipes under the roads, do we have an idea of what percentage are ancient versus newer?
A third. That's not.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you, to Richard. So about a third of the water main remaining in town is asbestos cement, which was installed back between 1951 and 1953.
Okay, thank you.
So about 52 miles.
Wow.
And it costs us roughly, well, we have some good pricing that's coming in on that kind of work, construction. We're doing about $1 million a mile, something
Yeah.
like that is what you have to figure.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Cook?
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment and a question. The question through you is for Richard. Of the capital improvement projects, Richard, improvement projects will be in the annual town meeting warrant, and how many will be in the special town meeting warrant for Wednesday?
I'm hoping, my plan right now is the ones I mentioned for equipment for the DPW sidewalks, equipment for fire, upgrades to the police, are all on the Monday evening annual town meeting for the general fund. And then all of the water and sewer that I mentioned will be on the annual for Monday evening. Right now, the special, I don't have any plan for. I don't know if there's going to be any funding left from free cash to put towards any capital, because we haven't finalized what the snow and ice deficit's going to be. But right now, the plan is everything will be at the annual town meeting.
Capital planning will be in the annual.
Yes. Is there another question?
So on Wednesday, is that the way I understand it?
Yes.
Okay. Then is with regard, I mean, my comment is regard to, I notice our TV ratings have gone up lately from Nelson. But for the people that are listening and are watching, the all of this information, Mr. Chairman, as you know, is placed on YouTube, Tewksbury TV, YouTube. So anybody that wants to go back and look at what we're discussing here tonight, and those who have the ability to use YouTube, if you go to TV Tewksbury YouTube, you'll see all this information on the presentation at a Board of Selectmen's meeting. Is that correct, Richard? Jason?
That is correct, and it's online also. The capital plan is on the town's website under the FY22 budget.
Service, we to get the communications out. I think that's one area we're lacking when it comes to people to understand some of these budget items. I know we do a tremendous job with Richard putting a handout at town meeting, Mr. Chairman, but there's a lot of homework, I think, in my opinion, that a resident taxpayer should do to, at least before they come to town meeting, to see how these things are put together and how we discuss them as a finance committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that.
Okay. Any other questions, Tom?
And I'll have some later, I think.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just one quick thing. If there is any free cash left over from snow and ice, it'll probably go towards any potential deficits we might have in the FY21 budget that we're currently in. The other item I would probably use it for, and that's why I would not, all the capital will be on Monday night at the annual. I would use any leftover free cash to address the short-term debt that we have for the streetlights. that we're carrying and try to pay that off sooner than the 3 or 4 years that we anticipated to save on interest costs.
Okay. Dave, you have some questions?
Mine is really around road resurfacing. How much do we expect would actually get done in FY22 based on the capital plan?
That there are a number of different treatments that we're going to be using. Our crack, hello? Our crack sealing, we're looking at about 12 roads or 5.5 miles. Our actual resurfacing and reconstruction, we're looking at about 2.4 miles. And in FY22, we're hoping to utilize a new methodology or just something that we haven't invested in before. A different treatment, which is microsurfacing, and we're hoping to do somewhere in the vicinity of 3 miles there.
So, how many miles was that in total then? Of the different resurfacing methods? Did we lose them?
Brian, you there? How many miles, Brian?
Okay, now we're moving. Oh, that's the froze.
So I got 5.5 and just two.
Was that again?
Oh, okay, we're back. Okay, so
Yeah, it sounded like there were 3 different methods of resurfacing and you had different miles per, and I was just curious, the total miles.
total miles of resurfacing will be 2.4. But you have to understand that we're injecting different methodologies in there. So we're going to do crack sealing, which we hope to get 5.5 miles of that. And then we're taking on, and we're actually going to pilot it this spring, microsurfacing. And it's a way of extending the life of the pavement, so you don't have to get to that resurfacing and rebuilding. And we're hoping to do approximately 3 miles of that in FY22.
So approximately 11 miles in total.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, different methodologies, yes.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Jason?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I did have, or maybe I would ask if you could walk me through the water distribution plan for this year again. I saw that in one part of the spreadsheet, it was like 18 million or something, but then some of it's coming out of retained earnings from the enterprise fund. If you could just sort of walk me through the water distribution plan.
Yep. Jason, if you could go back to slide 4. Okay, so this slide gives you an idea of what we want to spend over the next 5 years. That's the 13.6 million. 11.5 of it will be in the water distribution design and improvement. And then 1.16 will be for water tank maintenance upgrades. 625 for hydrants and 350, 500 for vehicles. We're going to be using retained earnings from most and borrowing to pay for that. We do have money in our water stabilization fund, as you can see there, but we're not going to use that. When you go to the next slide, the $3.1 million for water distribution improvements, we're going to use 1.6 out of retained earnings, and we're going to borrow 1.5. We'll do a 10-year borrowing for that. And we have debt service already built into the enterprise fund budget. We're going to seek $125,000 from retained earnings for hydrant replacement, $60,000 for tank cleaning for the 4 tanks. So we have 160 there, 100 will be deferred to the fall, and 60 will be brought forward in May at May annual town meeting. And then we'll be seeking to utilize 172,500 from retained earnings for 2 vehicles, 100,000 for a loader and 72,500 for a backhoe. Loader will be split with highway, backhoe will be split with sewer.
So what makes up the 18 million that's in the water distribution system in the summary page for FY22?
Okay, so you want to go back down to slide 12, are you on?
Yeah, right there.
So what's in there is the $15 million. It carried it over from a slide, $15 million for the DPW school facility.
Okay.
And I should probably take that out. If you look at slide.
Yeah, because I saw another line where it has 15 million this year and 15 next year.
Right. So it's not 15 3 times.
Yeah, well,
It just shows on slide 17, which is the couple of slides ahead for debt on the debt service. We'll be borrowing $15 million for the water treatment for the DPW facility. I'm going to correct that slide on the front page. It shouldn't show there. It only should show on the DPW
I was
facilities.
confused. I thought maybe we were trying to get another 15 million somewhere.
No, we'd like to, but we're not trying to.
All right, then that clears that up for me. Thank you. Yeah, we probably should fix that slide so it doesn't look weird. The other thing I was curious about was the sidewalk. I think you explained it pretty well, but I just want to make sure I got it. So let me try to find my spreadsheet here. So this year it was something like, I don't know, 800,000 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And 250 was from the general fund, I believe.
Yep, stabilization fund.
Yep. Okay, so the other 650 roughly. I think you mentioned a grant or something. What is that? That's not coming from Chapter 90 or anything.
Yeah, no, Kevin, you want to explain that? That's a complete streets grant.
Sure. So there are 2 grants that we've applied for. One is for $400,000 for the Complete Streets program through Mass DOT. And the other one is a housing choice grant for $220,000. And we're waiting on the notice on those.
Okay, and obviously if those don't come through, then we won't be spending that money, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I had a question on the new fire engine. So last year it mentioned trying to refurbish. Did we figure out that couldn't be refurbished, and is that why this year it's turned into a new one?
That's on the ambulance?
The fire engine, I believe. That's what my notes say. I could be wrong.
I don't remember us talking about refurbishing one.
See if I have it here.
Which year are you looking in, Rob?
I was just comparing it from last year to this year's capital improvement plan. Take me a minute.
Yeah, the plan has always been to replace one of the engines in FY23.
Yeah, I just thought from last year that we were looking to refurbish, and my guess was that we found out we couldn't, and that's why now it's a new one, but I just wanted to ask.
I'd have to go back and look at that.
Okay. I'm wrong. Looking at last year's. All right. Oh, and I noticed, again, comparing last year to this year, this is for maybe Brian and Kevin, the project development line, it increased quite a bit. I don't know if it's this year or not. My notes aren't great. It increased from like 400,000 to 790. I don't know. I'm along with you guys too.
Which budget would that be?
Find it. It was in the DPW section that said project development. It's near where it was like pavement, reconstruction, sidewalks, improvement projects, and then project development.
Total budget, 7.
Oh, yeah, that's total over 5 years is 790.
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah, maybe it was the
Yep.
total.
It's 130 for FY22, 130 for FY23. Yeah, that's on the, that's project development for transportation.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious if there was anything that popped up that we didn't realize last year that came up in the last year. And the last, maybe my last question on the facilities, rec fields and facilities.
Yep.
FY23, I know that's another year out. Looks like it got a big bump. But was there? What do we have planned there?
So that's big bump there is $500,000 for lights for one of the larger baseball fields down at the recreation facility on Livingston Street. The plan will be to put lights. It's the last field we'll need to do for Ogden's. It's the larger baseball diamond for Senior League.
Okay.
And then there'll be money in there for any, I think there's some other like parking and upgrades, things like that, but mainly that's for lights at the baseball field.
Okay, and that currently does not have lights.
Currently doesn't have lights, and we'd seek CPA funding for that.
Okay.
We've done the Little League fields on Chandler. We've done Memorial Field. We've
Yep.
done a field on the softball field for girls' youth softball. One large baseball diamond in town would be good to have.
All right, excellent. I don't have any other questions at this time. Yeah. Anybody else have any other follow-up questions? Yes, Tom.
Comment on the fire apparatus. Do we have a rescue vehicle now?
We do, Tom. It's a 2000 rescue vehicle.
Rescue 1 right now?
It might be that, yeah.
On that vehicle.
I'm not sure of the miles. I'll get that for you, though.
With the fire station itself and going to a greater F3 550 ambulance,
Yep.
size of the new station. Richard, what your thinking is on the $2 million that we added to the fire station construction budget and how you plan to use that? The additional $2 million?
Yep. So the additional two, I think it was like $2.5 million we asked for. We don't need to use it yet, Tom. The price of the fire station and the budget that we have, it doesn't appear that we're going to need to borrow those funds. The only thing I could think of is if we have some real emergency that comes up that we would need it for, but right now I don't anticipate borrowing it. The only other area I would anticipate borrowing the funds would be Bank of America is closing, and that land is becoming available, and they are going to let me know if they're interested in selling it to the town before they go out to sell it to the open market. And if that's the case, we could use those funds for that because we did get authority from town meeting to purchase land needed for the station. We could use that for parking and some additional storage.
So your plan is not to come back to town meeting if that occurs, is that correct?
For the purchase of the land, I would double check with town council to make sure I don't have to, but if I did, I know we've seen a lot of interest from people to buy that land. But right now, I think I have the authority based on a previous warrant article that was passed. At least the selectmen have the authority.
That's your thinking right now, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Richard, for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And one other thing I wanted to check by you, Richard, was the out of the water, sewer, stormwater, and telemedia, all the capital items are going to be from retained earnings, except for the borrowing of the water distributions for a couple mil or whatever it was. Is that correct?
All of the funding for those are either going to be a stabilization fund or retained earnings, yeah? One borrowing.
Yeah, but most of those capital items for those enterprise needs are coming from those enterprise funds.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay, does anybody have any other further questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I'd like the town manager to consider some rethinking on that $2.5 million and kind of direct the thinking towards the DPW project. Because I know we originally tried to, on the borrowing for the DPW, we try to keep that to a minimum. But if we have, and I know it's an unrelated project for the original article of the $2.5 million, but if somehow we could at least consider, because that money is already pretty much, it hasn't been borrowed yet, that we look at it for the DPW facility. Thank you.
I can do that. Just, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the only problem we have, Tom, is the fire station's exempt debt. And the DPW is not going to be exempt debt. That's going to be built into the general fund budget.
I believe the way the article was written for the 202.5 million was written as a separate article in the following year after the election of the exemption. That $2.5 million was an article for borrowing.
Yep.
So it's not related to exempt debt, in my opinion. It's a borrowing article. And if we got the permission to borrow, all we have to do is change the article meaning from fire station to a DPW garage. That's my thinking.
Sure.
And I'd like you to consider that.
Yep, I can look at that. Definitely. Rob, just quickly, I did look back at the last year's capital for fire. They did have a plan to refurbish one of the engines. I'll see what changed in this year's thinking.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? If not, we can let Brian and Kevin go. Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much.
I do.
Have a good night, gentlemen.
Yes, you too.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Kevin.
We'll see you guys.
Yeah. Do you have anything else for us tonight, Richard?
No, I just wanted to briefly go over that. We'll go over all of these items again when I present the warrant. I'm finishing up the warrant this week. You'll have it by the end of the week. There's about 32 articles, I believe. A lot of the standard ones, a lot that we've already talked about, so shouldn't be any major surprises. The big issue this year is going to be the zoning bylaw change that will be brought forward, so should have that for you by the end of the week. I think we're ahead of schedule. You only have 2 more budgets to do.
Yeah. That's great. Moving right along. Okay, so I believe, Tom, you said next school committee, elementary school building committee was the 11th this week?
6 o'clock live virtual.
Okay. And the bylaw committee, Jason, I think is also this Thursday?
That it is this Thursday, yes.
Okay. And I don't imagine there was a green committee or economic development committee meeting week and last.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Richard, any luck getting a recording secretary?
So we just need to, we've been trying to schedule a time where I can just meet her. That hope is, I think, either tomorrow or Wednesday. If I can work out the cost with her, then I'm going to bring her on board. I'm going to give her the YouTube of all your previous meetings that weren't covered. Have her catch up on those. Same with the Board of Selectmen, but she seems good. I've gone through some of the minutes that she's done for other communities. I think we'll be good to go.
Great. Good news. Does Melissa still owe us some? I have no idea.
You still owe you some, yeah.
Figured she must. Okay. I guess we'll deal with that when it comes up. I don't think we have anything else. This feels really short. Right.
Yeah.
No
All right.
complaints here.
Next week will be the school department, right?
School department next week, and then the week after Shawshene Tech.
Mr. Chairman, if we have questions for the school department, should we send them to you?
Yeah, that's worked out pretty well the last few years. So why don't we do that? Yeah, go through the budget. Have any questions? Forward them to me or forward them to everybody, right?
Yes.
Forward them to everybody. Go from there. That'll give them time to sort of prep any answers or whatever. Look up numbers for you, Dave. Okay, if there's nothing else, look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Rich, second. All right, roll call vote. Where's my notes here? Rich, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tom, how do you vote? Dave, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jason, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I heard aye from Tom, even if nobody else heard it. We are adjourned. We'll see you next
Thank you,
week.
everyone.
See you
See you
next
next
week.
week.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Safe. Bye-bye.